Hi, Jigs.
Now we're talking.
Yes, now we're talking. Depending upon where you are, it's good afternoon or good evening. I'm Eileen Crane, and I'm the CEO and Chief Bubblehead at Domaine Carneros. And there's one thing that I consider equal to good bubbles is great cheese. And Sue Connolly is with me here today, and she was the co-founder of Cowgirl Creamery. And Domaine Carneros has featured Cowgirl Creamery cheeses from the very beginning of us serving cheeses, which was a few years ago. Do you remember exactly when that was, Sue?
Well, we were trying to think it's at least 14 years.
At least 14 years. I think it's probably longer. I don't think I would have let you get away for that long without providing us with cheeses. It was just too wonderful. So I'd always enjoyed them and was delighted that we could buy them for the winery. And we have cheese plates at the winery that are aimed at sparkling wine and towards our Pinot Noirs as well. And Cowgirl Creamery cheeses feature broadly in our offerings. So Sue, how did you get into the cheese business?
Well, I came from cooking.
Yes.
And
as us gals sort of did, yes.
Restauranting.
Yes.
And had a restaurant in Berkeley called Betty's Ocean View Diner.
Yes,
and
yes. It's still there, isn't it?
It's
still packing them in.
I heard they reopened today.
Ah.
So yes, it's still running with one of the original partners at the helm. But after moving to Point Reyes, which is the original dairy region of California, I met Albert Strauss and his mother, Ellen. I don't know if you ever met Ellen, but she was quite something. She was the founder of the Marin Agricultural Land Trust.
That's impressive, yeah. Back then, yes.
Yeah, and she started it in the 80s. I met her in the early 90s. And her son Albert was transitioning his dairy to certified organic.
Yes.
And that's the Strauss Family Creamery.
Yes.
Also learned about great cheese in France and England.
You did?
Yes, because Peggy, my business partner, my current business partner, was a chef at Chez Panisse and was invited to chef at the Vin Expo in Bordeaux. She did that for about 16 years, because it happens every other year.
Right.
And invited other chefs, cohorts, to join in that busman's holiday where we cooked.
Yes.
We cooked a meal a day for about 200 people, the guests of the vintners, the California vintners,
yes,
who were showcasing at Vin Expo. So it was a way to show off American cooking with American wine, and it was really fun.
You want to bring it back. I can hear that in your voice.
We're too old now. You really have to be very young and work, We got our produce and meat from the marketplace, the wholesale market, and the fish, and met a fenor there named Jean Delos.
Yes.
Who helped us get excited about cheese. So the combination of having great milk and appreciation for traditional European cheeses, then with the overlay of Neal's Yard Dairy, which saved farmstead cheese making in the British Isles. That's where the passion came from, and we were already passionate about cooking. So
it was just an offshoot of that. It's part of the same business. It's just specializing. And when did you start this?
It's been going for we started working on it 25 years ago, and we opened it about 22 years ago in Point Reyes Station.
And it's grown since then.
And then we got more and more excited about cheese making and continued to expand and get skilled people in our business that could help us improve the cheese and get it to market. And so we are certified organic, but growing and taking care with, doing it right, as you said
Yeah.
at the beginning.
And that's what we've done. We're not. Sometimes people see the beautiful chateau, and it's a landmark in Sonoma, and people think it's so prominent. People think that Domaine Carneros is a large winery, but in fact, we're sort of a small to medium-sized winery, and slowly and consistently, but at the same time wanting to grow our own grapes and grow them clean. Mm-hmm. So we've been certified organic by CCOF. We've gotten a number of awards over the years for our green policies. And our goal was never to be the biggest. It's always been to be the best. And of course, if we have the best sparkling and Pinot Noir, we need the best cheeses to go with those also.
I think, our philosophies are aligned. That's why we've worked so well together over these years. And the other part of our business is that we wanted to bring other cheeses along with ours to places like this. Mm-hmm. Other cheeses that are local, and you all buy mostly local.
Yes, we do.
Very few that you would bring in from outside this area, which is so exciting because when we first started, there were only 5 cheesemakers in Marin and Sonoma, and now there's about 30. So, you actually have a pretty good selection of. You started with a very small selection, and now you have a lot to choose from.
Well, it's true that in the early days we did use some cheeses from around the country, actually, and we did something from France at one point. But we've actually decided that so many of our guests are not from this region and like to try the local produce and the local items. So we've done that. And also, these cheeses seem to go particularly well with the wines that we make. And a long time favorite is Mount Tam. And we were chatting just before this started to be a video about Mount Tam, and that it's pretty hard to resist. And we were even talking about you can cut the cheese in half widthwise and use a truffle paste or truffles in it, put it in the middle, put the top on it, and let it meld for a couple of days, and you just really don't need anything else in the entire world, as far as I'm concerned, as long as you've got some good bubbles to go with it. But the Mount Tam's been a real favorite at the winery, and I don't think it'll ever come off our cheese plates. People in the visitor center will say if we ever took it off the plates, there would be insurrection among our guests. So we're very conscious that this is a key item for us. And the Mount Tam is, if I were just to choose, could only choose one, it would be the Mount Tam to go with our sparkling. And the sparkling that we most often pour for guests is our classic estate-grown Brut Vintage. And this is the blue bottle, Royal Blue.
Does that mean we get to try it now?
Yeah, you do. You do. You get to try it now. So I always thought, well, what is royal blue? And then I realized this is what the kings of France, the color of their robes are royal blue in France. So, and we thought that our royal, that is our state-grown Brut, should have the royal color of France on it. So, and I particularly like this one with the Mount Tam, although I've been known to enjoy it all the way around with others of our wines, but this is for me kind of a match made in heaven. So
it's delicious.
I'm glad you appreciate that. You can
taste a little wine first before the cheese.
Every so often, someone will look at me and think like, "This is really good," and I think, well, we don't want to make things that aren't really good. That's kind of where we're going. So
can you find that Mount Tam?
Oh yeah, I can. I just sort of figure that out pretty darn quick.
The Red Hawk.
Yeah, the Red Hawk is the. We were talking before we came online, so to speak, that over the past few days, I and my honey have been doing the Red Hawk, and I thought that might be a little bit stronger with the sparkling wine, but it actually worked beautifully, and we certainly not only killed the bottle, but also the cheese, so that worked quite well. So you brought us some other cheeses here today. That
I did. Are you going to try the Mount Tam with your?
Yeah, well,
Sparkle?
I've done that many, many times. You're going to have to do the talking while I do the tasting. I'm not sure how that's going to work.
We got to make sure it works. Because this is your cheese plate now that you're featuring starts with the Mount Tam because it's the least strong. It's the most mellow, buttery, creamy. There's not a lot of conflicting tastes with any wine. It is especially good with this one, I will say.
It's pretty. So you've got the rosé now.
Whoops.
That's okay.
No, I tried this one.
You tried that one, yeah. But you know, it's the seasons. The rosé is just sort of like about April 15th. Once you get your taxes done, of course you got a little extension this year, but April 15th you feel, I got my taxes done, you open a bottle of rosé and drink it all summer long. The brutes are a little bit more, it's a good policy, yeah, absolutely.
So the three cheeses on your plate are Mount Tam, and then this Highway 1, which is one of our neighbors in Valley Forge.
Right.
So Point Reyes is on Highway 1, then just north about 20 miles is Valley Forge.
Yep.
And that's where this is made by a wonderful dairy family. It's about probably a fifth generation dairy family, and Karen, the mom, who was about 40 when she decided she should make cheese with their milk, got so excited about it and made pretty good cheese. But her son Joe went to Cal Poly, and he got the passion. And he had the milk there, you know, his family's farm, and they just bought a little barn right on Highway 1 and made the most beautiful tasting room and aging room where you can see the cheese being aged. And I have to tell you, this guy is going places. He's just getting started, and he's making blue cheese and this Highway 1 and a couple of other excellent aged cheeses.
It's a good thing to know that it's on Highway 1 because you're probably not going to find Valley Forge on the map. Let me tell you, it's not a metropolis.
It's a cow town.
It really is. You know, it's like you sort of stumble upon it, but it's a beautiful drive out through the Sonoma coast. And
isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. But the key here is Highway 1. That's how you get to Valley Forge. Great idea.
And then the third on your plate is this one, Point Reyes Bay Blue. And are you related to the Giacomini's? A lot of people around here are.
I don't. Well, actually, I probably shouldn't admit to this, but I'm from New Jersey.
Okay.
And not known for either wine or cheese. But, you know, it just sort of happened with me. My dad had landed on D-Day and became in love with the French wines and cheeses. And he came home in the 50s and had a wine cellar, which was an oddball thing back then.
You're not kidding.
Yeah, really. Gin and tonics or rye and ginger.
Yeah.
But he had a wine cellar, and he would let me taste the wine from the age I was 8. And I just thought, well, it was for me. And when he opened a bottle of champagne, I thought, this is really for me. So, and little by little, I had several other careers. As you started as a chef, and I started actually as a nutritionist. I worked for the University of Connecticut, and
so you had the science.
I had the science background. Yes,
yeah,
I did.
That's really key.
Yeah, it really is. It's also equally important, and maybe more important, is to have the palate for making cheese, making wine, any excellent form of food, and I consider wine one of the foods, one of the most important foods in my book. But in fact, they say that wine is the second oldest way of preserving food is fermentation. And so my question was, well, what's the first? Well, probably freezing. That in very cold climates, you could just freeze things and use them later. But so I'm not sure who was out there at that time. Probably about 10,000 BCE or something. But it's worked the fermentation part anyway.
And cheese, of course, is also one of the great
Ancient
fermented foods that was a way to preserve milk as you travel across the desert on your camel.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Your camel. the milk turned into curds. Okay.
You know that story.
I'm not sure I'd really want to try that out of the.
That would be delicious. And
You're
I did
hungry.
try a cheese once made in Turkey, and it was aged inside the hide of a goat. And guess what it tasted like? It was gamey.
Well, these cheeses we're tasting today are not quite that gamey at all. Yeah.
Friendly cheeses, all of them.
We actually have a question going back to the Mount Tam. Someone would like to know how that is made.
Mount Tam is, it has flavors of a brie, but it's not made like a brie at all. It actually is made from a Gouda recipe. And it's so soft and supple and delicious. Gouda's delicious too, but it has that rubbery texture.
Yeah, it does.
And it's supposed to.
Yeah.
That's good. But we wanted to make a soft cheese. And we saw that the Saint Andre in France was so popular because it was just like eating cream and
Right.
with a little salt. And
Yeah.
so if that was out on a table, everybody would go for that first. And we wanted to have that same appeal, that it's approachable, very well made, but easy to love.
Yeah.
And so we had an intern who was a scientist and from the Netherlands, and Peggy and I were describing how we needed to have this cheese texture and the white mold, the Candida mold, and he said, well, let's make a Gouda. That's not a good idea. It's not what we're talking about. But we started with the Gouda recipe because that's what he knew how to make.
Yeah.
And we reduced the cooking time. We added different culture mix. We put cream into the milk, and we didn't heat it as much. We didn't stir it as much. So the thing about a brie is it's not cooked at all. It's a fresh curd, and so that's why it rolls out on the plate when it's at that perfect maturation. But we wanted something that was really, wouldn't be so fragile, and that's what this is. It's a cooked curd, and it's a stirred curd, and it's a mold ripened triple cream. It's got a lot of elements going that in France you would only have one of those things.
Yes.
But we're in America.
Yes.
So
You're outside the box.
We
yes.
can play.
Yeah.
It worked out really well.
And it certainly did. We've seen those plates go and out year after year with that Mount Tam on it. Nobody says, "Oh no, that's not one we want." So, but we're getting a little bit too much attention to the Mount Tam. That's okay.
And then we had the on your plate Point Reyes Bay Blue, which is made just about 5 miles from where our place is in Point Reyes, and it's by a multiple generation producer of great milk.
Yeah.
But the girls, who are now in their 50s, their 4 kids, wanted to make cheese, and that brought them back to the dairy. They didn't want to milk cows.
Yes.
So the parents were really freaked out. They didn't know what to do with the dairy, and then the girls wanted to come back. And so they've made a fantastic business and actually have a visitor center that's much like a winery visitor center called The Fork. So on your travels up Highway 1, you can go to Cowgirl Creamery, then you can go to The Fork, and then you can end up at Valley Ford. So I love that you have these 3 on your plate. It's an appellation. It's beautiful.
So in this cheese, being a blue cheese, I don't normally associate that with sparkling wine, but let's try that with the. I
Okay.
think the rosé might be the perfect thing for this.
I agree. It a bit overwhelms it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's delightful.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't it's a little bit. It's a different kind of taste.
It is.
I wouldn't necessarily choose it. On the other hand, if it was presented to me this way, I would gladly both drink the wine and the.
Well, when you think about it, at the end of a meal,
Mhm.
it would be a perfect pairing. Just a little blue cheese and maybe some of this jam
You know, so many
to
people
bring sweetness
let's
in.
do it. A little jam for a little dessert plate. I think
Yeah.
that's fabulous. You know, we struggle that so many people think sparkling wine or champagne should always be at the end of the meal, and that's so common in so many places. And think of the weddings that they keep the champagne to go with the cake, and part of that is that historically, champagnes were very sweet wines, and the early champagne glasses were very small. They were that little tulip shape, but over time, champagnes and fine sparkling wines have less sugar added to them in the dosage, and so it becomes less and less. The wines are less and less sweet, and they really don't go with desserts unless it's a demi-sec that's aimed at desserts. And so over time, people have their palate has changed, and they want sparkling wines with cheese, not with desserts anymore. And I always think at weddings, when they serve the cake and they serve the sparkling wine, it's a shame. Why not start the wedding reception with a glass of bubbles? It elevates the mood instantly.
I agree. That is the way to do it.
Mhm.
And at the end.
Well, yes. Okay. Well, or in between. In my case, people say, "How often do you drink sparkling wine?" Well, whenever it's put in front of me. I'm not someone who's yes, certain standards, but other than that, yes, I'm pretty much happy with bubbles.
Yeah.
But we do stretch out. I mean, I'm sure you taste cheeses from around the world, as I do
Oh, yeah.
sparkling wines, champagnes from around the world.
Definitely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we skipped over the Valley Ford cheese,
Mm-hmm.
which was, oh, did I eat mine?
Uh-oh.
It's it's this one.
Off with her head.
Oh, no,
yes.
here it is. No, that's the,
The Valley Ford is the one that's actually got the rind removed.
yeah.
That one's delicious.
So that's a washed rind,
Mm-hmm.
and so it has some pungency, mostly in the aroma.
Mm-hmm.
When you taste the paste,
Mm-hmm.
it just brings in that mild anchovy
Mm-hmm.
kind of savory note.
I
And
think
What are you going to serve that with?
I think that's a Pinot Noir. I mean, I'm okay with the sparkling wines, but as long as we've got a Pinot Noir here, that seems to be a really good choice. The mushroomy bit, the anchovy bit, a little bit of that, and it's very subtle, and it's. I could vote for that.
Oh, that's lovely.
And that's something we use in our Pinot Noir plate. So it's a good place to, at the winery and our salons and our terraces right now. Beautiful, beautiful time to be here. That we make several Pinot Noirs, red wines, and we also have a cheese plate aimed at those wines, which is, and we've often find that a couple or a group will order different samplers of our wines and different samplers of the cheese, and that goes pretty well.
I just have to say, I'm here for the first time in months, and it feels so good to be at Domaine Carneros. There's a welcoming feeling. feels like nothing bad's happening in the world. So thank you for inviting me.
Well,
at
you're
this time.
you're very welcome. That's I think that one particular actress said, you know, whatever your problems are, a little bit of bubbly in your glass and it's all good, you know, and that really is. It's hard to be sad when you're drinking champagne or sparkling in our case. So, also, some of the things that we have on our tray here is some cashews, which I particularly like with sparkling wines, and we also have some wonderful sort of chutneys. This is what one's called an artisan product called Girl Meets Dirt. So heritage preserves, and we serve these. This is a Bartlett pear one. We serve this with, I think, a sparkling plate, and we have a number of other condiments over the years that we've used with our different plates, and that always. It's nice to have something a little bit special, dried fruit or nuts along with the plate, and try it with our sparkling and our Pinot Noir wines. So what's your favorite cheese? Is that not a fair question? Do you cook with cheese, I imagine?
Well, I did bring one of our fresh cheeses, Fromage Blanc, which is a really unappreciated delight. And I believe, I think a lot of times you serve fresh goat cheese with your champagne.
Yes.
Or sparkling, sorry.
Yeah.
And this, in France, they have fresh sheep milk, fresh goat milk, fresh cow milk. So they're all called Fromage Blanc. So this is Fromage Blanc Vache, made of cow milk.
Yes.
So I want you to taste it with either of the sparkles.
All right.
This one.
Okay. And these crackers are rustic bakery. And it seems to have a little herb in it.
This one is plain, but they do have a natural kind of herbaceousness. They're made in Petaluma, about 2 miles from where we make our cheese.
That's interesting that it does have an herbaceousness to me, and yet it's a wonderful little side taste to it. It's really delicious.
So I want everyone to try Fromage Blanc, whether it's goat, sheep, or cow, with sparkling wine. It's wonderful.
And you have it just on a cracker, or
yeah,
just very simple, and it certainly is pretty darn delicious. I would have to say, yes, it's really a good combination. Yeah.
And then what else did I bring? I brought this Hopalong, which
yes,
you all are going to feature, I think, on one of the next plates. But it's one of our newest cheeses that's aged for about 3 months, and then during that process, it's washed in hard cider 3 times, and it gives it, all of these washed cheeses have to have some either a salt brine or a beer or a sweet wine or something to help develop the rind, and then it also imparts some flavor. So it's again it's a mild cheese, so it's easy to pair.
It's got, and then the rind part has that little. I wouldn't guess it was cider, but it has kind of a little bit of a musty, or a little bit of growing up on the East Coast, and there are lots of apples at harvest time and very ripe, and it brings back those memories tasting it. It's really
Did you taste it
fun.
with the Pinot?
Well, I will do that. You're keeping me straight here on what I'm doing.
I know.
I'm not going to miss anything while Sue's here.
And it's okay to circle back, right? We don't have to go in any order. Though if you're doing a true tasting, you have to go with the mildest to the strongest.
Yes.
So I wouldn't do the blue cheese in the middle like we just did.
Like we did, yeah. Well, you know what they say about making rules, yes. All right.
Speaking
On Zoom or at home?
At home for others, for friends.
Well, first you get the masks out. We just have these cute little masks right now that just came in that have like a rosé background and bottles of champagne all printed all over them, and what fun those are. So,
Yeah.
yes. So, for a cheese and wine pairing, you could do it with. It'd be interesting to try a couple of different wines. To try a sparkling wine, a Pinot Noir, and maybe something a little heavier like a Merlot. Actually, Domaine Carneros does make a little Merlot from a famous vineyard in our area called Hyde. And I think maybe for a tasting like that, maybe 6 different cheeses would be nice. And you could have it kind of a walk around thing and taste different cheeses, or you could do it as a little seated, put together a little cheese plate of, I guess, 4 to 6 different cheeses and 3 different wines, and then have people state their preferences and why, and you could have even a contest. The best descriptors on the cheeses get a prize of some type, whatever it's going to be. But
We're always looking for new words, new descriptors.
New descriptors,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I think I would agree, and if they're a more serious crowd, you would want to plate the cheese the way they've done here, in a circle, so that they taste them in order of strength. And you would do that with the wine too.
Oh yes, yeah.
Though you might want to go back and forth, right?
Right.
You don't want to. You want to start with the wine and cheese pairing that you think is correct, and then invite the guests to mix and match.
So you'd start with the sparkling, which is the most delicate of wines, and then maybe start with a couple of cheeses that you think, or the cheesemongers suggest, that might go with sparkling wine, and then move on to sort of, for Pinot Noir, a stronger cheese, and then, for instance, a Merlot, go on to still a stronger, but then
invite them to try the Merlot with the Mount Tam.
Yeah.
You know, just see what happens.
I can't imagine that would be bad. No.
But yeah, we do a lot of cheese tastings. Sometimes we make a map with the name of the cheese and the producer, because that's really important to us. Who made it? Where is it from? Is it California, France? And then we print them out, and everybody gets one. Everybody gets a map. And you do that with wine too.
We do that with wines all the time.
We make circles.
We make circles.
And it has the name of the wine.
The wine,
so
yes.
if you want to go crazy like we do, it's really fun.
So how crazy do you go?
Well, just making. I mean, you do too. You make the map. You put the names of the wines so that people are really paying attention.
Yes.
I mean, it's a certain group that you want to do this with.
Right.
It's not your cocktail Friday club.
Right.
Where they just really want to have fun and taste.
Yes.
Lots of good things.
Yes.
Which is, there's nothing wrong with that.
No. It's also a good
fantastic.
thing. Yes. Yeah. All right. So I think we're about to wrap it up, unless you have another question. And
That's it for questions today.
Okay.
Everyone's really excited, and we're looking forward to purchasing the cheese in store, or visiting the Ferry Building, and visiting us once again.
the Ferry Building's wonderful, and also the Point Reyes Station is also a wonderful place to visit. And it's wonderful. Thank you, Sue, for being here.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
It really got us down the right trail to superb cheeses that were local. That's a wonderful thing. And if you want to do a little less informal cheese tasting, you always can come to Domaine Carneros and enjoy our sparkling wines and try many of the wines or many of the cheeses we've tasted today. So it's always good to make a reservation at Domaine Carneros, where we tend to be popular, which is a good thing. So
It's beautiful here, by the way.
yeah. So thank you all for being with us this afternoon or this evening, as the case may be, and a votre santé.